Hello everybody and welcome back. Krevin here, and this is the first of what I was speaking about in my general overview video of the Skaven the other day, of what will be a coverage of one of the 4 great clans. And today we are covering Clan Skryre, arguably the most powerful Skaven clan, especially as you get near to the end times lore. This clan rises to dominate Skaven society in many different ways. There's still an argument, but this is a very powerful clan in Skaven society. So let's take a look at who they are, who leads them, where they're located, what they do, why they're so important and so iconic to the Skaven. So the Skaven are known for specializing in what's quite a bizarre blend between sorcery and science, and just a kind of combination and mix match of the two to create some really wacky, extremely volatile and dangerous weapons and machines that the Skaven use either in warfare. That's one of the big applications for Skryre's inventions, but also some for domestic use, such as digging out tunnels or even a kind of mini telephone. Although all their inventions are fairly poor quality, extremely unreliable, and in no way safe, they do play a huge role in Skaven society, and we would not see the same kind of faction if they did not exist. As with all Skaven, double dealing, treachery, backdoor selling is extremely prevalent, and treachery is just par for the course when it comes to Skaven. So this clan manages to stay above the rest by maintaining a monopoly, which is helped by the Council of 13, the Skaven's ruling body. If you're not sure what they are, I suggest going back to my previous video where I kind of outlined all of Skaven society, including the Council of 13. But the Council of 13 has basically ruled that the Warlock engineers of Clan Skryre are one of only 2 classes, the other being the Grey Seers, that are allowed to use magic, which is extremely useful when working with Warpstone, which powers all of their inventions. So we're going to get to Warpstone and exactly what that is. We're going to go into that in some detail so you have an understanding of what kind of a substance this is, just how crazy and powerful it is and dangerous, as well as how it often messes with the minds of the people that work with it. Not that Skaven care about that, because life is extremely cheap to them, and also none of them can even consider in their wildest imagination that they should actually die by using Warpstone, even though it happens every day in Skaven Blight. So if you remember from our last video, if you've seen that, there are different precincts in Skaven Blight, the capital of the Skaven, in which each of the major clans kind of has their headquarters and their embassy if their main fortress isn't in Skaven Blight. Now, Clan Skryre is different from the other major clans because they have an extremely large precinct in Skaven Blight. So at one time, the Warlock engineers actually took control of the city, usurping basically whole quarters of the Undercity for their sorcerous machinery. So the cathedral-sized halls are lit by glass spheres filled with lightning. Steel-wheeled carts are hauled along metal rails by tireless, smoke-belching iron beasts. Pistons, gears, and cogs the size of houses endlessly churn, generating power for relentless industry. All other clans resent the space, wealth, and power of Clan Skryre, but few dare to openly defy them. So those are the conditions and headquarters of the Clan Skryre factories and laboratories. This is a good time to talk about the different classes within Clan Skryre. Like a normal warlord vermin clan, Clan Skryre has tons of Skaven slaves, which basically they use for target practice, experimentation, any dangerous job, also to do menial tasks around the factory. Life expectancy is par for the course for other Skaven slaves, extremely low, do not expect to live a long time, and they're essentially seen as worthless in the higher ups in the clan's eyes. Next, you have your regular clan rats. They basically are going to assist the Warlock engineers with anything that they need, but also carry out the day-to-day runnings of any clan, merchants, sellers of wares, anybody that basically just keeps the cogs running, greasing the wheels, that kind of thing. The next up in line, though, is going to be different than other clans. you're going to have your Warlock Engineers. So these are basically the Sorcerer Engineers of Clan Skryre, and they're the ones that really set this clan apart. To them, sorcery is basically another just field of study, and their experiments and inventions blend the arcane with the scientific in some kind of a weird mix and mash. Their endeavors have created the strangest and most baneful weapons and devices in the world, which are sold to the other Skaven clans, and that's how they maintain their dominance over other Skaven clans, by making themselves indispensable. These devices that they create include, and we're going to be talking about these later in the video in more detail, doom wheels, warp fire throwers, rattling guns, warp lock jezzails, and warp lightning cannons. Most of the Warlock Engineer's inventions incorporate the solidified chaos known as warpstone in some way, which tends to make Clan Skryre weapons unstable and prone to disastrous malfunctions. Sometimes they base their inventions on captured technology of other races, innovating upon their designs to create new and more bizarre versions of the same weapon. For instance, the warp lock jezzails are a modification of weapons that were captured from the dwarves, the dwarven handguns. So Warlock Engineers are also capable of using sorcery in the traditional way, and make use of a special device that enables them to see the winds of magic and tap into them to give them sufficient power for their most destructive spells. The leader of the Warlock, or I should say the Chief Warlock, is Ikit Claw, and he is the most able of the Warlock Engineers, and basically is the second hand to the main, well, I should say the Warlord of Clan Skryre. So yeah, very powerful guy. Just like other Skaven clans, the Skryre are riddled with treason and backbiting and skullduggery of all kinds, and usually a Skaven will ascend to the Warlock Engineer position by eating another Warlock Engineer that he's been assisting. So if you're a particularly lucky clan rat, then you become a Warlock Engineer assistant, and then if you survive that and you survive all the crazy tests that he has you do, and you somehow succeed him and flourish, which is extremely unlikely, the most likely scenario is that you die within the first day from all the crazy testing and whatnot that he's going to have you do of his insane experiments. But if you do survive and you eat him, you can become a Warlock Engineer fully. And then same thing, if you want to become the Chief Warlock Engineer, you simply have to either eat the other Chief Warlock Engineer, or you have to have one of your inventions funded either by the leader of your clan, Skryre, or funded by even the Council of 13, which would require a bunch of votes from them. That's extremely unlikely, and if you should fail them in any way, of course, you're going to die. And even if your proposal gets turned down, you're probably going to die. So, it's still very dangerous in Clan Skryre. They are just as harebrained as pretty much every other clan. They just happen to be a little bit more scientifically harebrained. Lord Warlock Morskatar is the leader of the Skryre clan, and he holds one of the two most powerful seats on the Council of 13, the 12th seat. It being so powerful because it's closest to the 13th seat, which is figuratively held by the Horned Rat himself. For more information on the Council of 13, go back and check out my previous video. So Lord Warlock Morskatar is extremely powerful. In fact, he once ruled Skaven Blight, essentially during the second civil war the Skavens had. He drove out the other clans from the tunnels and other quarters of the city while invoking great magical feats, which is definitely useful when your clan's been one of only 2 classes that are even able to study magic under the council. So definitely a little bit of an advantage there. So Ikit Claw, which is his second hand rat, used these feats which Morskatar was using to enhance his already prodigious abilities too. So it made Clan Skryre even stronger. So let's talk about Lord Ikit Claw. Chief Warlock Ikit Claw has a lot of lore in the Skryre Skaven books, because he has journeyed essentially all over the old world and the decades leading up to the Second Skaven Civil War. He's been to Cathay in the south, he's been to Vorskar in northern Nagaroth, the island of Albion, in search of the magic of the Old Ones, and Lustria, to visit the ancient and monolithic ruins which have stood for millennia. The knowledge Ikit Claw gained from his journeys around the world allowed him to create a tome of the spells of the civilized world. So he's extremely powerful. In fact, he is the one responsible for inventing the Warp Lightning Cannon, which has been successful in several campaigns against the dwarfs, orcs, and humans alike. Long ago, Ikit's arm and part of his face was burned in a freak accident, and he lost a lot of his fur. To conceal this, he has created a mask and skeletal claw to cover his face and arms with iron, and it actually conceals within a warp fire projector a sword called the Storm Demon, which he created in his own forges deep in the Undercity, and it's made of pure warpstone, which makes it basically an incredibly powerful blade. If we get to play with him in Total War, it's going to be amazing. He's going to be a huge melee boss hero, but he'll also have a lot of access to the Skaven's clan Skryre magic lores, so that'll be extremely cool. Let's talk about Warpstone next before we start getting into Clan Skryre's different inventions and war machines that are all run by this crazy powerful substance. So what is it? It's solidified chaos. It's the raw stuff of it. It's the ultimate magical substance and is greatly sought after by the followers of chaos. So if you don't know, chaos basically mutates and changes whatever it comes into contact with. This could sometimes be good, but is frequently very bad and weird and crazy. So warpstone of substantial sizes can be found throughout the Warhammer world, but especially in the Chaos Wastes in the north, where comets or meteors have fallen to the earth. Warpstone usually takes the form of an irregularly shaped lump about the size of a man's fist. And basically the Skaven have tunnels throughout the world, and they collect the stuff wherever they can find it. They're basically addicted to it. It's like crack for them. It's crazy. In its solid, unrefined form, warpstone seems to swallow all light around it, creating a small patch of darkness. It also radiates a deadly and corrupting energy. Creatures suffering prolonged exposure usually die or become warped by mutation, although it doesn't really affect the Skaven, obviously, as they do wield these weapons and even talismans, containing unrefined warpstone, and they don't suffer any obvious, dangerous, and corrupting effects, although it could explain all the backstabbing and egotistical nature that the Skaven suffer from. So yeah, they use a lot of warpstone, and it does still corrupt them to a certain degree, and that's why some of them seem to live for a very long time. We will discuss some characters in these clan overviews that have been corrupted even severely and like grown extra arms and such from warpstone exposure, but it just doesn't corrupt the Skaven as quickly as it does other races. That's the important takeaway, but it still is crazy, powerful, and super unreliable and deadly. Plus, the Skaven just aren't that smart or just don't care about safety when they're creating anything with it. What they want is a huge explosion and a really powerful effect. Alright, so now is the fun part. We get to look at all the different Clan Skryre war machines. And this one you see up on the screen right here is the Doom Wheel. It's a curious Skaven war machine, and it's powered by rats and giant rats running inside two gigantic wheels like hamsters. You can see the two wheels on either side of that chair. There in the chair is a Warlock engineer who basically pilots the Doom Wheel and is armed with that Warplock pistol. The machine is renowned for being a bit unpredictable, but it is very, very destructive. As all Skryre inventions, it is quite unreliable, definitely unsafe, can blow up anytime, frequently misses, is hard to control, hard to aim. It's kind of the Skaven equivalent to a chariot unit. The Skaven don't have any cavalry, kind of like the dwarves don't. but they do have these doom wheels. They're extremely destructive, extremely powerful, and a factor on the battlefield no matter what way you cut it. Even if these doom wheels do wind up chewing through Skaven slaves or somewhat, I'd say you could even charge these things right through Skaven slaves, and it would still be a win if you get some of the enemy on the other side. So yes, very powerful war machine for Clan Skryre. Here you can see the Skryre unit, the Warp Fire Throwers, which is a particularly deadly unit. You can see it's rather like a flamethrower. It unleashes instead though a deadly mixture of warpstone and highly volatile chemicals, which emerge from the barrel as a gout of unnatural green flame. The concoction's particularly hellish and insidious, as creatures who manage to survive contact with the mixture are still subject to warping effects. Creatures coming into contact with the flame begin to bodily break down, meanwhile spouting all forms of insane mutations. To the delight of the Chaos Gods, the victim quickly is driven insane by the agony and mental trauma before finally decomposing completely. The Warp Fire Thrower is operated by a team of 2 Skaven. As you can see, one of the crew's members carries the canister in back with the volatile fuel for the machine, while the other manipulates a nozzle to fire and aim the weapon. Like other Skaven devices, it's highly unstable and liable to disastrous malfunctions, which is why it's frequently Skaven slaves that operate it, because clan rats don't want to deal with that even. Because it's crazy. That goes wrong, and you die of insanity and hellish mutations. No thank you. On to my next and one of my favorites, the Rattling Gun. It's a 6-barrel rotary gun, as you can see, operated by 2 Skavens. The Rattling Guns are relatively recent actually to Clan Skryre. The weapon is operated by a warp steam and a hand crank, which rotates the barrels and unleashes a hail of warp-laced bullets sufficient to cut down an entire enemy unit. Clan rats referred to creatures killed by these guns as teeth breakers, as the bodies tend to be embedded with dozens of the glowing bullets, which stick out. Even if you should survive for some chance of the bullets, you still have to deal with the warp stone in them, which is going to cause horrible mutations and poisoning into your bloodstream, which will eventually lead to a horrendous death. So very deadly, one of my favorite units. Yet another iconic Skaven unit are the Warlock Jezzails. They're long-barreled Skaven muskets which fire bullets of refined warpstone. A Warlock Jezzail requires a team of 2 to operate, one armed with the Jezzail and the other propping up a heavy shield used to rest the gun barrel on. The shield also is providing a cover for the team. The Jezzail's unusually long barrel gives the weapon a range unsurpassed by other handguns. The high velocity of the warpstone bullet strikes with enough force to easily punch through shields and heavy armor, and the poisonous nature of the warpstone makes any damage inflicted all the more grievous. Bullets fired by the Jezzail leave a faint green trail, which is a big downside because it allows the enemy to trace the shot back to their source and return fire in the appropriate direction, although they will have to usually get closer in order to do so, considering the Jezzail's long range. This makes the Jezzail teams especially vulnerable, of course, and the traditional gun rest of the Jezzails has been developed for such a reason, as a shield to protect them. So here we are at what is probably the most iconic Clan Skryre war machine invention, and it is of course the Warp Lightning Cannon, which was initially designed, as we discussed earlier, by Ikit Claw under his lore portion of the video. It makes use of a large chunk of raw warpstone and channels the magic energy through a series of mirrors and lenses to intensify its beam. It leaves the cannon as a green lightning bolt, powerful enough in theory to shatter a mountain. It is moved, aimed, and fired by Skaven slaves, and its power output is known to be very unstable and dangerous to handle, as well as difficult to aim properly. I believe that in the tabletop, and I'm not primarily a tabletop gamer of any kind, but I believe you actually have to roll for a misfire chance, and you also have to roll for a power outage kind of level for this machine. It's very unstable, very unwieldy, very dangerous, but can be extremely useful on the battlefield and kind of represents the heart of all Skaven war machines. Now that we've gone over the core war machines that Clan Skryre brings to the Skaven, I think I'm going to end the video here. There still are more war machines that Clan Skryre has produced, but they are in coordination with some of the other great clans, such as certain cyborg rats with Clan Molder, or the Poison Wind Mortars with Clan Pestilence. So we'll be seeing those in those clan overviews in the future here as part of their army composition, since they don't have quite as much lore and quite as many units in general as Clan Skryre does. So we'll be adding those units to the other clans roster instead of this one. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this lore review for Clan Skryre. We definitely hit all the main things. Comment below on what your favorite aspect of Clan Skryre is. If you play Total War Warhammer, what are you most looking forward to that Clan Skryre brings that you might want to see in the game? I will be seeing you guys in the next Great Clan overview. Until then, I've been Krevin. See ya.